Have you ever had the need to combine the data from multiple CSV files?
Yes.
Well, of course, I'm sure you've had, and that's the reason why you're watching this video. But what if in case your CSVs were not in the right format? They had a couple of junk rows on the top, maybe the columns were inconsistent a bit. We'll take a look at all of those scenarios in this video, and we will learn how do you combine the data from multiple CSVs into one single Excel file. Well, no further ado, this is going to be a fun video to watch. Let's start. Alright fellas, let's just take a look at the folder and the CSV files that I'm working with. So I've got three CSV files. We have Feb, we have Jan, and we have March. And the data shows up right here. So you can take a look that although the headers of the CSV start from here, which is date, product, and the units, and this is the date, the product, and the units. But hey, there are two junk rows on the top that I'd like to get rid of when I'm trying to combine the data. But if I take a look at the Jan CSV, guess what? We have the same headers, date, product, and the units, but there are no junk rows up on the top. And the month of March, there are quite a few junk rows on the top, and the number of junk rows are not even consistent. So the first order of things that I'd like to sort it out is definitely get rid of these junk rows on the top and then combine the data from these multiple CSV files. While I'm combining the data, I'll also talk about nuances of dealing with columns and the number of columns there are in the CSV, and we'll also take a look at that. Well, let's just fire up Excel and start to work with this. For me to be able to combine the data of those multiple CSVs in a folder, I don't even need to open those CSVs. I can just work with Excel. So I can just go over to data and say, I want to get the data from a file from a folder, and I will point that folder location to the place where the CSVs were. So here is my folder, CSV files. I just click on it. You don't see the CSVs, that's fine. I'm going to click on open, and this is going to give me a preview of all the CSVs which are there in that folder. You can see that we have the same CSVs, Feb, Jan, and the month of March. I will click on transform data, and this is going to put this CSVs in the Power Query window, and from there we will start to clean the data and combine the files. So I'll click on transform, and I'm inside of Power Query, and you can see that obviously we have this particular folder connected with Power Query, and I can see all the three CSVs, and this is nothing but the CSVs, and I'd like to combine the data from these. All right. Now you can see that we have the content column, and the content column contains the binary, which simply means a file, Excel file, PDF file, CSV file, doesn't matter. It's a binary, and that's a file that I have right here. Now Power Query, which is the application that is open right now, does not have the native capability to just read the file directly. You need to convert this file into a more readable format like a table or something, and then it'll be able to start to read it. So what function or what formula or what technique do we use to take this binary and convert it into a table-like format so that the data can be read inside of this? We're going to use the function csv.document. So I'm going to add a column, and I'll create a custom column. Now I could have done that in the very same column as well, but I'm creating a custom column so that you can take a look at the difference. So I am going to call the column as custom, doesn't matter. And I'm going to say that the formula that I'm going to use is csv.document. Now the case sensitivity is something that you'll have to take care of. So C and the D here is uppercase. You can see that it says, hey, what's your CSV document? So I'm just going to feed the source is nothing but that binary file that I have, which is there in the content column. So I'm just going to feed the content column, close the bracket, and press enter, and you can see that we get a table. And now you're going to see that the data that was there in the CSV is now been able to read. So we have two junk rows, no junk rows on the top, and we have 4 junk rows up on the top. Now, of course, you have the open button, which is the expand button, which is where you can expand the columns. But hey, I don't really want to have these junk rows before I start to expand the data. So what can we do to be able to remove these junk rows and then expand the table right up on the top? So what we're going to do is we're going to work with one single table, either of the three tables. So maybe we can work with this particular table. We will delete these 2 junk rows dynamically without actually hard coding the number 2. And then the logic that we get from deleting these 2 rows, we will apply that logic to the rest of the tables as well. If it finds the number of junk rows on the top, it just deletes them, and we are kind of good to go. All right, to be able to work with just one table, I'm going to click on the table, not on the side, but click on the table, and the table gets loaded in the next step, which is fine. Now we are momentarily working with this table just to ensure that we clean this table, remove the junk rows dynamically. Whatever operation that we do on one table, we'll then apply to the rest of the tables as well. So what do we do exactly to be able to remove this? Let's just take some help from the UI. So I'm going to go over to the home tab, and I'll say that, hey, I want to remove rows. So remove rows, remove top rows, and I'll say, hey, I want to get rid of the first 2 top rows of the data. Click on OK, and the 2 rows are gone. Now the formula that we get that is removing the 2 top rows on the top is table.skip function, which is where the number 2 is hard coded. But this is not going to work when we are working with another table which has got 4 or 5 junk rows on the top. So obviously we need to do something about the 2 so that the 2 is not hard-coded, it's dynamic. But what can we do? So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to start to create a column, and the column logic is going to tell me that how many junk rows do we want to remove. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to maybe, of course, just remember this formula and delete this particular step that I have created, and I'll start to create a custom column logic. So I'll go to the Add Columns tab and create a custom column. We're just creating this column just to understand the logic. And once we understand the logic, we'll then be able to take that logic and replace that with the static 2 that we had. So for starters, I'm going to just go ahead and write the underscore right here. Click on OK. And this produces a record. Underscore in the context of the table means a row. So this is the first row. That means the first record. The second row means the second record, so on and so forth. If you actually peek into this record, you're going to see that here I have the date and the two empty values. And then here again, I have the junk and then 2 empty values. And this is where I get date, products, and the units. Now, thankfully, in this particular scenario, we just have the same headers of the data. We have date, we have products, and the units. Therefore, I can just take these headers and map it that, hey, take a look at every single record. Did you find these headers, date, product, and the units? And if you did find these headers, anything above that, please remove that junk rows up on the top. So to do all of that, what logic do we write? I'm going to go ahead in this particular column once again, and I'm going to say that, hey, right now you are a record. And the problem with the record is that it produces 2 values. It produces the value of the column and it produces the name of the column. I don't really want to work with the names of the columns. I just want to work with the values. So I'm going to maybe convert the record into a list. So I'm going to go ahead and say record.toList and start the bracket, close the bracket. So I'm going to click on OK, and then record gets transformed into a list. Now list is going to have just the values. So it has date, 2 empty values, junk and 2 empty values, and then here are my headers. I'm going to write a very simple check. I have a list, and this list is going to be compared with another list, and I'm going to say, hey, is this list equal to the list that I will hard feed into the formula, which is where I'll say, hey, are you a date, are you a product, and are you a unit? And if these 2 lists are equal, that means, hey, you are good to go, and then anything above that is going to be removed. So I'm going to go ahead and start to say is equals to, and start the curly bracket, and I'm going to say this is going to be a date, and this is going to be a product, and this is going to be a unit. So a list is compared with another list, and that's the reason why I initiated a curly brackets. And I'm going to close the curly bracket. So this is a list on the left hand side, this is a list on the right hand side, hard-coded but still okay. And I'm going to click on OK, and we have a true and false. Now the problem is the list.skip function that we saw it earlier, which is where we had the hard-coded number 2, it will stop skipping the rows on the top based on a condition when it encounters the first false, not the first true, the first false. So if you take a look at the logic right now, of course, this is not date, product, and the units. And because it's not date, product, and the units, it gives you the false. And here, again, it's not, it gives you a false. But you know what? In our case, for the table.skip function to work, I want the first false to be here. And that's the logic that the table.skip function works. So that's not a difficult thing to do. I can just change that equals to sign to a not equals to sign, and this is going to invert the logic, and this is where I will have the first false. That means, are these 3 values not equal to date, product, and the units? Of course, they are equal, hence false, and we get the first false here. As soon as the table.skip function sees the first false, that is where it will stop to skip the rows. Now, we've got the logic. If I just go back to the custom formula, we've got this logic, and I can copy this logic, Control-C on that, and now I can just get rid of this particular thing right here. Delete it, and we're back on our table. Now, in this table, I will again skip the first 2 rows on the top, but I will replace the 2 with the logic that I have written. So take a look. I'm going to go back to the Home tab. In the Home tab, I have remove rows from the top, and then the number of rows are 2. Right now, fine. Click on OK. And here is where I have the number 2. Now, this is where I will start to replace it. So I'm just going to delete this 2 and instead write the formula that I have. So I'll just paste the formula and close the bracket. Now, because this particular formula, is going to be applied to each row, so the first row, the second row, the third row, the fourth row, so on and so forth, I'm going to have to prefix the each keyword here so that it goes to every single row, and therefore the rows are removed. Now, because we just had 2 junk rows on the top, of course the junk rows are removed because it found the date, product, and the units right here, which is giving it a false, and therefore it just stops to skip right here. Now, this particular formula, we're going to use it in all the tables that we have. So I'm just going to Control-C on the entire formula and get rid of this particular step. So delete it, delete this particular step, and delete this particular step as well. And we're back on our 3 tables right here. Now you can see that we have, junk rows on the top, we have no junk rows on the top, and we have 4 or 5 junk rows on the top. So I want to remove all of these. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and start to modify the formula that I have written. And I'm going to say that, hey, I want to skip the junk rows from this table. So I will say something like table.skip. Actually, let's just copy and paste the formula. So we've already copied the formula, so I can just paste the formula right here. Now, in this particular formula, you can see that the change type in our case was the reference to the table, that which table are you trying to work with. In this scenario, in our current scenario, we're trying to work with this particular table, and this particular table. Now that these 3 tables were generated by CSV document function, right? So I can just take this CSV document function that I had it, Control X to that on that, and I can just replace that with the change type right here. So Control V, and this should work. So Control OK, or Control OK, but just OK. I am just going to take a look at the table, and you can see that the junk rows are gone. No, they were no junk rows anyways, and here the junk rows are gone again. There were 4 junk rows here, they are all gone. And now the only thing left to do in this particular formula is to just take the first row to the headers. So the first row should be moved up to the headers, and then we can open up the tables and so on and so forth. So I'm just going to continue to work on the same formula. So I can just go back to the formula, and I can say, hey, why don't you just table.promote headers? So that's the formula to just push the headers on the top. So table.promote headers, start the bracket, close the bracket in the end. And this is going to push the first row to the headers. If I take a look, date, product, and the units, good to go, and good to go. Now, obviously, I can combine the data and I can work with the data. Now, when I expand it, I will have the choice to pick up whatever columns I need, date, product, and the units, and we are kind of good to go. If you're enjoying the video thus far, but you'd like to get more out of the Power Query M language that we have been writing so far, I will highly recommend that you take a look at my course. We discuss the very same kind of problems, maybe even more complicated. We take a look at the logic. I give you more nuanced approaches to solving the problems, give you the logic, help you understand what we are doing, why are we doing in the first place, and then you'll be able to take that logic and apply it to your own data as well. Hundreds and hundreds of students have joined my courses, and it's an absolutely fantastic course. In case you'd like to take your journey of learning Power Query, especially the M language behind Power Query, to the next level, I will highly recommend that you take a look at the course. It's going to be so awesome. All right, that's it. Let's get back to the video. Another very nuanced thing that I'd like to talk about is that how do you adjust the number of columns coming from the CSVs? So take a look at this code that we have written so far. Here's the code. Everything working so far so good. We have removed the junk rows on the top, and we have used the csv.document function. Now I'm just going to maybe take this particular csv.document function and copy it for a quick second and put that in the notepad. In the csv.document function, you have the ability to control the number of columns that you're getting by various parameters that you have. So how do you do that? Let's just take a look. So in the csv.document function, you obviously are going to input the binary. So if you remember the content column, I'm just going to show it to you. So if you remember the content column was nothing but which had binary. So this is the first binary, the second binary, the third binary, the CSV files, I mean. You input the binary, the csv.document function converts that into a table, and it has the optionality to choose the number of columns that are coming from those tables. Well, what can you do? So if I just put in a comma here, and in here, I can define what columns do I want. So I first have to declare a record right here. And in the record, I can write the column name as columns. That means I'm trying to refer to the columns which are coming from the table. And if I just happen to write 2, from all of the CSVs, it's just going to pull the first 2 columns. So if I just maybe take this piece of code, Control C on that, and if I replace this code with the csv.document function very, very carefully, Control V on that, you're going to see that now in our CSV, we are only going to have the 2 columns that we had. Now, obviously, it shows you a blank because we are taking a look at 3 items in the list. So date, product, and the units, but we have just kept 2 columns. So I just need to remove the units from here, and you will now start to see the 3 columns. So I can just maybe remove the units from here. And if I now take a look at my formula, you're going to see that we just have the 2 columns of the data, date and the product, which is nice. So this is one way where you can control the number of columns that you input inside of the formula. Another interesting thing that you can do with the csv.document function is not even consider the columns as fixed like the way that we have done 2 here. So if you entirely remove this part, which is columns equals to 2, then the number of columns are going to be completely variable. So no matter your file has 2 columns or 4 columns, or they have unequal number of columns, they are all going to be considered. So if I just happen to go back to my csv.document function and just happen to remove the 2 and bring the function to its original state, like the way that we wrote it, And of course, this is going to be the square brackets. And now the table is not even going to consider the columns. So let's just see what happened in here. Of course, we need to bring this back to the original state. So we had 3 columns, date, product, and then we can have the units here, and we can just write the units, and that is going to bring the table back. So if I just now take a look at the table, we have date, product, and the units all working fine. Now, one little nuance before I close on the video. At the moment, we have declared this particular list, date, product, and the units as a hard-coded list, but there could be several variations in the function, which is where this list is not even hard-coded. This list could be a user input, this list could be dynamically generated, and things like that. But for now, I'm not covering those advanced topics right here. But I do cover those advanced topics in my course. If you're interested, the link of the course is down in the description of the video. Once we have set the parameters of the csv.document function, remove the junk rows, decided on what columns do we want, the only thing which is left now is to just take the data and combine the data of these 3 tables. Now, sure enough, you can open up these 3 tables, which I can do. So I can just click right here. The 3 columns are selected. No fuss about it. Click on OK, and those 3 columns are combined. Now, should you want to keep the additional columns that came along, like extension and date accessed and date modified, you can keep it. If you don't, you can remove it. But for now, the data is combined from all the 3 CSVs right here. The only thing left for you is to set the data types of these columns, and we are good to go. Load the data, and you can enjoy.